Did I waste years convinced that vulnerability meant weakness when it was actually strength all along? I used to think that showing any kind of vulnerability meant I was weak. I thought that if I let anyone see I was hurting, they would see it as an invitation to hurt me more. I built up walls so high and thick that nobody could get close, and I convinced myself I was better off alone. It took a long time and a lot of painful experiences to realize that those walls weren't protecting me, they were just keeping me isolated. I started therapy last year. I realized I had some unhealthy patterns in my relationships. I always pushed people away before they could reject me. I thought I was being proactive, but I was just creating self-fulfilling prophecies. My therapist helped me see that my fear of vulnerability stemmed from my childhood. I grew up in a home where emotions were not discussed. Any display of sadness or anger was met with criticism or dismissal. I learned to suppress my feelings to avoid conflict. This carried over into my adult relationships. I expected everyone to react the same way my parents did. My therapist suggested I practice expressing my feelings in small ways. I started by telling my closest friend when I was having a bad day. It felt awkward at first, but she was supportive. She listened without judgment and offered comfort. This encouraged me to be more open with her. I even started sharing some of my insecurities. It was a relief to get these things off my chest. The more I practiced being vulnerable, the easier it became. I realized that not everyone is going to hurt me. Some people actually care and want to support me. I started to understand that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It is actually a strength. Allowing myself to be open and honest with people I trust allows for deeper connections. It also allows me to receive support when I need it. I am still learning how to navigate this new way of relating to others. It is scary to let my guard down, but I am finding it is worth the risk. I've realized I can't do this alone, and I don't have to. I can ask for help. I can lean on others, and they can lean on me. This is something my parents did not teach me. I started to understand that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It is actually a strength. Allowing myself to be open and honest with people I trust allows for deeper connections. It also allows me to receive support when I need it. I am still learning how to navigate this new way of relating to others. It is scary to let my guard down, but I am finding it is worth the risk. I've realized I can't do this alone, and I don't have to. I can ask for help. I can lean on others, and they can lean on me. This is something my parents did not teach me. I think my upbringing contributed to my issues with vulnerability. I never saw my parents express emotions. They just worked and provided. There was no emotional intimacy in my family. I learned to equate emotions with weakness. I thought that showing vulnerability would make me a target, just like it seemed to do for my mom sometimes. I'm working hard to unlearn those lessons. I am trying to create healthier relationships based on honesty and mutual support. It is not easy, but it is necessary for my own well-being. I understand why my parents behave that way now. They grew up during tough times, and they did what they thought was best for us. It doesn't excuse the lack of emotional connection, but it gives me some perspective. I see now that they probably felt just as lost and confused as I do. They simply did not have the tools to navigate their own emotions or teach me how to handle mine. I am breaking that cycle with my own family now. It is uncomfortable sometimes, but it is worth it to create a space where we can all be ourselves. I know that I have a lot of work to do to fully overcome my fear of vulnerability. I am making progress though. I am opening up more with my partner and my close friends. I am also seeking therapy to help me process my past experiences. I am learning to recognize my emotional triggers and to respond in healthier ways. I am also practicing self-compassion, which is something I never learned as a child. I am hopeful that I can build stronger, more meaningful connections with others, and with myself. I grew up in a household where emotions were considered a burden. My dad worked long hours, and my mom took care of the house and us kids. They were always stressed about money, and they never talked about how they felt. If I cried or got upset, I was told to toughen up, or that I was being dramatic. I learned to bottle up my feelings and pretend everything was fine, even when it wasn't. This carried over into my friendships and relationships as I got older. I always presented a strong, independent front, and I avoided getting too close to anyone. In college, I met a woman who would eventually become one of my closest friends. At first, I was hesitant to let her in, but she was persistent. She saw through my tough exterior and recognized the pain I was hiding. One night, after a particularly difficult exam, I finally broke down. I told her about my childhood, my insecurities, and my fears. To my surprise, she didn't judge me or tell me to get over it. She listened, offered support, and shared her own struggles. It was the first time I felt truly seen and understood. That night changed things. I started spending more time with her. We studied together, grabbed meals, and went to parties. I even started opening up to other people. It wasn't easy, but she encouraged me. She pushed me to step outside my comfort zone. I slowly learned to trust others and build meaningful connections. I realized that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. It allowed me to form deeper relationships and experience genuine connection. I started to see the world in a different light. This friend became my chosen family. She understood me in ways that my own family never could. She knew my flaws and loved me anyway. I never had a sister growing up, but she filled that role. We shared secrets, dreams, and fears. We supported each other through thick and thin. I honestly do not know where I would be without her. She taught me the importance of friendship and the power of vulnerability. She changed my life in ways I cannot fully express. It meant a lot to me that she listened. I had never felt comfortable being so open with anyone before. My family wasn't the type to discuss feelings. We mostly kept things to ourselves. I always thought that showing vulnerability would make me a target. I figured people would take advantage of my weaknesses. This friend showed me that wasn't always the case. She created a safe space for me to be myself. I started to trust her more and more. I felt like I could tell her anything. I valued her friendship more than she knew. I started to think about things differently. Her example influenced me. I began to analyze my past behaviors and reactions. I realized how much I had been holding back. I saw that I had been building walls around myself for years. I wanted to tear those walls down. I did not want to live in fear anymore. I wanted to connect with people on a deeper level. It would take time and effort, but I was ready to try. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be setbacks. I also knew that it would be worth it in the end. I decided to take small steps. I started by being more open with my close friends. I told them about my insecurities and fears. Their reactions surprised me. They were supportive and understanding. I felt a sense of relief after sharing my burdens. It felt good to let go of some of the weight I had been carrying. This encouraged me to continue on this path. I looked for other ways to practice vulnerability. I even considered going to therapy. Therapy seemed like a big commitment. I worried about what people would think. I eventually decided that my well-being was more important. I found a therapist who seemed like a good fit. I started attending sessions weekly. The therapist helped me understand the root of my issues. I learned coping mechanisms for dealing with anxiety and stress. I began to feel more confident in myself. I started to believe that I was capable of change. That experience was the beginning of a long journey of self-discovery. I realized that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. It took courage to open up and let someone see the real me, flaws and all. I started to challenge the beliefs I had held for so long. I began to practice expressing my emotions in healthy ways, instead of suppressing them. I learned to ask for help when I needed it, and to accept support from others. It wasn't easy. There were times when I felt like I was taking one step forward and 2 steps back. Old habits die hard, and it was difficult to unlearn the patterns I had developed over years. But I kept at it, slowly but surely, making progress. I started therapy, which provided a safe space for me to explore my emotions and work through my past trauma. My therapist helped me identify the root causes of my fear of vulnerability and taught me coping mechanisms to manage my anxiety. I also began attending support groups. It helped me realize I was not alone. Many others had similar experiences and struggles. Sharing my story and listening to theirs created a sense of community. I learned from their insights and advice. They offered encouragement and understanding. They helped me stay motivated when I felt like giving up. These groups became an important part of my support system. I also made an effort to connect with friends and family. I had isolated myself for a long time. Rebuilding those relationships took time and effort. I had to be honest with them about what I was going through. I also had to be willing to listen to their perspectives. This strengthened our bonds and created a sense of trust. I started practicing self-care. I made time for activities that brought me joy and relaxation. I started exercising regularly, which helped me manage my stress and improve my mood. I also focused on eating a healthy diet and getting enough sleep. Small changes made a big difference in my overall well-being. I also learned to set boundaries. I started saying no to things that drained my energy or compromised my values. This was difficult at first, but it became easier with practice. Protecting my time and energy allowed me to focus on my own needs and goals. Therapy was hard work. I had to confront a lot of painful memories and difficult emotions. Sometimes, I would leave sessions feeling emotionally drained and overwhelmed, but I knew that it was necessary for my healing journey. I had to dig deep and uncover the wounds that I had been carrying for so long. I began understanding how my past experiences had shaped my beliefs about myself and the world. I recognized that I had developed unhealthy coping mechanisms to protect myself from further pain. My therapist challenged me to let go of these patterns and embrace healthier ways of relating to others. I started journaling to track my progress and reflect on my experiences. Writing down my thoughts and feelings helped me gain clarity and perspective. It was a way for me to process my emotions and make sense of my inner world. I also started setting small, achievable goals for myself. These goals included practicing self-care, engaging in activities that brought me joy, and connecting with supportive people in my life. Celebrating these small victories helped me build confidence and momentum. I realized that healing was a process, not a destination, and that it was okay to have setbacks along the way. I decided to try therapy. Finding a therapist I felt comfortable with took some time. I had to call several offices and ask about their specialties. I made sure the therapist had experience working with people who experienced trauma. During my first session, I felt nervous and unsure of what to expect. I talked about my past and how it affected my present life. The therapist listened without interrupting and offered support and guidance. Over time, therapy helped me identify patterns of behavior and develop healthier coping mechanisms. I learned to challenge negative thoughts and replace them with more positive ones. Therapy also provided me with a safe space to process difficult emotions and heal from past wounds. I continued to explore different self-help strategies in addition to therapy. I read books about trauma, resilience, and personal growth. These books provided me with valuable insights and practical tools. I also joined a support group for people who experienced similar challenges. Sharing my experiences with others who understood helped me feel less alone and more connected. I learned new ways of coping and gained hope from hearing about other people's journeys. I focused on building a strong support network of friends, family, and professionals who cared about my well-being. I also started practicing mindfulness and meditation. These techniques helped me become more aware of my thoughts and feelings in the present moment, without judgment. I learned to observe my emotions without getting swept away by them, which allowed me to respond to situations with more clarity and compassion. I found that taking care of my physical health also had a positive impact on my emotional well-being. I started exercising regularly, eating a healthy diet, and getting enough sleep. These simple habits helped me feel more grounded and resilient. Over time, I began to see a shift in my relationships. As I became more vulnerable and authentic, people responded in kind. I formed deeper connections with my friends and family, and I attracted more supportive and understanding partners. I learned that true intimacy is only possible when we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, imperfections and all. It was not easy at first. Showing my true self felt risky. I worried people would reject me if they knew the real me, the me I tried so hard to hide. I practiced being open, starting with small things. I shared my fears with a close friend. I told my brother about a mistake I had made. Each time I revealed something personal, I felt a little lighter. I also realized that most people are dealing with their own insecurities. They were often relieved when I showed vulnerability, because it gave them permission to do the same. Eventually, I decided to address the biggest challenge, my relationship with my parents. I knew this would be the hardest thing I had ever done. I had spent years building up walls to protect myself from their criticism. I also knew that I could not fully move forward until I resolved this conflict. I wanted their approval. I needed to let go of the anger I had been holding on to for so long. It was time for me to be honest with them and with myself. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when I reconciled with my parents. I had always held resentment towards them for their emotional unavailability, but I realized that they were doing the best they could with what they had. I sat down with them and expressed my feelings, not in a blaming way, but in a way that communicated my desire for a closer relationship. To my surprise, they were receptive. They apologized for the ways they had hurt me and expressed their love and support. It was a healing experience for all of us. I am not perfect, and I still have moments of insecurity and doubt, but I am no longer afraid to be vulnerable. I know that it is okay to ask for help, to express my emotions, and to let others see my true self. I have learned that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to my strength and resilience. I can now look back at the time I thought vulnerability was a weakness with pity. The walls I had built were not just keeping me from getting hurt. They were keeping me from experiencing joy, connection, and love. Unlearning that has been one of the most challenging and most rewarding things I have ever done.